Say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. Tom Ginn, G-Force. G is for gratitude. I started this program about 2.5 years ago on a premise that it was taught to me in my coaching, gratitude and how it can change everything. I read a book by Robert A. Emmons that really brought a different perspective of gratitude. And I'm speaking for myself, and many times we take thankfulness and gratitude for granted. And gratitude really changes, and it changed everything in my life. And it can do that for you. So my program is all about gratitude, how it can change your life, no matter what the circumstances that are going on, whether it be a loss of a loved one, challenges in your business, challenges of life that we get. But when we go to a place of gratitude, it changes our perspective. You can't hold a negative and a positive thought in the same place. It's an emotional, good feeling, no matter what the circumstances are. So I encourage people and recommend people to get the book by Robert A. Emmons, Gratitude Works. It's a workbook as well, but it really causes a person to really look at gratitude at a deeper level. I call it a spiritual principle that opens up gateways in life to your heart, to love, and those elements of spirituality. So today I'm really excited for my guest. This is actually the third time I've had an opportunity to witness my guest, and I interviewed him a while back, Mark Gassert and I, on Elevate Your Profits, and we're going to be talking about some of the principles in his book, Selling from the Heart. And we're going to interweave gratitude because our heart is part of that gratitude formula. So without any further ado, I'm bringing my guest. Larry, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you, Tom? Great seeing you again. Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to so enjoy this conversation. I was sitting there, I was listening to your message over the last couple minutes, and so spot on. And I applaud you for all the work that you're doing with gratitude. I'm a big believer in this. Gratitude is the relational bridge builder. And we really have to just stop and think about if relationships are really important to us. And I know they are, whether that be personally or professionally. What are we doing to lead our lives with gratitude? And just to further reinforce this is if it's okay, I wanted to give a special shout out to a dear friend of mine, and he's become a mentor of mine. Guy by the name of Don Barden, Barden. He wrote a book called The Perfect Plan. And Don's a behavioral economist. He did some deep research into what some of the top 1% do. What makes these people different? And what was really interesting is the first thing that made these people different was gratitude.
Yeah, Larry,
they open up their conversations with gratitude. They lead their life with gratitude. Every conversation I have with somebody, hey, I'm super grateful for the opportunity that we have together. And you have to come from that place where you sincerely mean it. Otherwise, it's just a word. Gratitude becomes a word, just like authenticity becomes a word.
Yeah. You know, I appreciate that there, because we do take it for granted. Gratitude, you know, in anything, your relationship, the time we have here, I'm really grateful for this opportunity because it's special. And it could be just that once in a lifetime, but I'm more grateful for knowing who you are and what got you to here.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people, I always use this in my coaching, if you don't mind me expounding a little bit, is we take gratitude for gratitude. You walk into a coffee shop and a barista's back there making your coffee and you say, thank you.
Sure.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
And it's just a verb or a word that we say and we move on. But when you come from, when we look at people that walk this earth differently, and we can call that success, or we look at them and go, wow. Yeah, I call it the wow factor. That something intriguing about them. And you hit it right on the head. When you listen to the people that are living the life maybe we're aspiring to be, or whatever the case, they're talking about their gratitude. all the time. And, this was a hard thing for me. A coach woke me up on and says, Tom, you're pretty much too much into your ego and about you. Start thinking about some other people. Be grateful.
Yeah.
Get out of your victimism. Some of the victim things I was leaning into. And he's recommended the book by Robert A. Emmons. And it's an amazing book because it calls you to look deeper. To the barista, we say thank you, or thank you for the cup of coffee, and you walk off and you enjoy your coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But really, if you look at it this way, what did that barista have to do? They had to, here in Wisconsin,
Sure,
get up early, weather
mm-hmm.
the snowstorm, the ice. They get there at 4 o'clock in the morning, open up the coffee shop. They got families. They got, are we really grateful for the sacrifice that they paid so they can deliver you a nice cup of coffee? And then you look at the owner.
Yep.
That sort of leads this trail. What did the owner sacrifice and made a lifetime investment? If we really start looking deeper, all the way to the farmer that created the beans, it changes our depth of gratitude. And I think that's what Robert A. Emmons says. We take it on the surface, but if we really look at gratitude, and I'm grateful for my mother, but why are you really grateful for your mother? And what are the sacrifices? And you go through that lineage.
Yeah.
To bring what you're grateful for, it means a whole lot more.
Well, you think about, especially this gratitude is, and I write about it in Selling from the Heart. It's how I coach and lead my life. And what's really interesting, first word that comes into mind, I'm going to touch on a couple things, is the first word, whether I think of gratitude or I think of authenticity, one word that comes to mind is congruency.
Yeah.
Are you congruent? Does the walk match the talk? And I think so often the words, and I just recently, hey, Mark Gasser, I just recently wrote an article. In fact, it was just last week about keeping things simple. We overcomplicate so many things in life and we just use words, but the words we use and the messaging we use is going to connect to somebody. And they can smell congruency right away. Yeah. Conversely, they can smell incongruency right away as well. But it's just interesting when you really lead your life with gratitude, it changes conversations instantaneously, right? And just use the barista that you used as an example is one of my first mentors shared with me many, many, many years ago. Larry, you really don't know somebody and you really don't know the road they traveled until you know their backstory. And when you can unpack somebody's backstory, it changes everything. It changes how you connect to them. It changes how you converse with them. And then when you look somebody in the eye and you can say, you know what, I am super grateful for you. Thank you for sharing your journey with me. How may I continue to serve you? These are just things that forever watch people's eyes. And I know, Tom, you've seen it. Watch people's eyes and their expressions. They go, holy cow, what just happened? Holy smokes.
Yeah. You said something, congruence. We communicate in many levels, the audio, visual, sensories and all that. But we also, I think the most powerful area we communicate and we all communicate this way is a subconscious level. We could be saying something here, yep, but our real self is communicating at a subconscious level. And it takes work, getting out of yourself and
yep,
into the other person, and we're sort of diverting here. I think.
No, dude, this is all good. I mean, I love the conversation. Hopefully everyone else is. This is good stuff.
Yeah, I was working with a client and very talented woman, great gifts that she has. And she was getting a little frustrated that people aren't hearing me. And, through my study and mentoring and all that, it sort of came to that divine thought. I didn't create it. It's been out there for eons. Sure. It's probably in scripture and other books and writing, but it just sort of came to me. Our voice becomes more powerful.
Yeah.
when we hear the other person's voice first.
Yeah.
And that's a principle I didn't make up, but that's sort of what came to me, and I made that again-ism. But it's true, is that in your book, is in selling, and I come from many different schools of selling, from transactional, always be closing. You've heard all these terminologies, right? But the ultimate people that succeed, it's all about people, showing that you care. You know, Maslow, do you see me? Do you hear me? And do you really care? I think that's and I think that's what that's part of the essence of your book.
Yeah, no,
So,
you're so right, and we touched on this on the podcast when I spent time with you and Mark. Is I want to hit on this word. I really want to hone in on one word that you used just a second ago. You used the word people, and I want to expand on this because it really plays out in what Mark had shared in comments. And thank you, Mark, for the shout out. Mark just said, Larry writes about it in his book and it's applicable and really does work. It's all about your approach, humanize it. And I want to really play on this. Is we use these words over and over and over again. People buy from people. People buy from people we know, like, and trust.
yeah.
We use those phrases. Those phrases have been used eons ago and decades ago. They're used right now. They're used by sales leaders. They're used by salespeople. They're used by entrepreneurs. They're used in conversations we have amongst friends. But yet, in order to really bring those two phrases to life, here's what I want us to think about. What are y'all doing to build your people skills? And what are y'all doing to build your relationship skills in order to have that play out? We have dehumanized society to so much because technology has done wonderful things, but it's also made us lazy. It's made us lazy in how we communicate. It's made us lazy in how we interact with people. And we got to get back to this is stuff that they were in. And Tom, I know you're a big Napoleon Hill guy. I know you are. It goes back to all the things that Napoleon Hill would write about, that Napoleon Hill was in discussions about with Andrew Carnegie, that turned to the book Mental Dynamite. These are all these things that some of the legends of our time led their life with. They led their life as authentic gets, and they led their life with gratitude. They kept things simple, but yet over decades, we've convoluted everything. And what would it mean if we just got back to the basics? The basics do work.
Yes. You said basics. It takes work. And, in life, we're on a journey. And we have a choice. Are we going to be complacent and just accept things as they are? This is the way the universe, this is my lot. That we hear that all the time. Or are we willing to grow and expand and become better human beings? If we're going to serve people in our families, our business community, our social communities, our religious communities, if we want to really serve, we really got to do, and people aren't doing this, is the work on themselves. Understanding how we think, why we think, how do we get to these points of views, our belief systems. And that takes work and study. But when we do that, then we like going back to my client, we're now in a position to be empathetic and listen, because my pain is no longer the important thing. It's really about you. And then you can communicate in a whole different level. But it takes work. But to be able to recognize our conversation that we're talking, we got to work on ourselves so these conversations even become more meaningful. And I think it's a tragedy that people aren't doing personal development work. And that's part of my mission, is that, have conversations with people that can have you look at the world differently. That's all coaching is, right?
No, absolutely. I've gone on to say this, and I'll poke the bear on this a little bit, but and this crosses generational divides. I'm not singling out youth on this. I'm not singling out tenured, mature people when I say this.
No.
Is if we struggle to have conversations with ourselves, and how we connect to ourselves, mark my word, you will struggle to have conversations and connect with people. It literally takes work. And you're right. I do call, it's about doing the work. I'm a big believer. The inner work that you all do is the hardest thing you will do. I shared this with you when I was on the podcast with you and Mark, is the work that I've done in my 50s. I wish I would have done in my 20s and 30s, but I've learned more about myself in my 50s than my 20s, 30s, and 40s combined. I've learned more about myself in the last 3 years than all those decades combined, because I was willing to do the work. And I would just ask people, what makes you tick? What makes you come alive? Most people can't even answer that simple question.
Yeah.
And that concerns me, is we just go through life, right? I mean, I can't remember where I read it, but there's a quote. I'm going to butcher it, Tom, but I think you might
It's
save
the essence of the
you,
story.
you might save me on this one. I hope you will. Is right. It's like the minute we graduate high school, so many of us stop reading books. It's like our education stops the minute we graduate high school or the minute we graduate college. There's a saying out there. I just can't remember what it is, but I think your listeners are going to catch where I'm going with this. Is how many of us stop growing and learning the minute we graduate high school or college?
Larry, I don't know the exact number. It's pretty staggering. The average high schooler reads one book a year. And it's usually nothing about growth oriented. It may be a fairy tale or a drama,
Sure,
or something that is entertaining. No, nothing against entertaining reading, but one book. Then you look at the scale of people that in professions and their level of success. When we look at the most successful people in any avocation, they're reading 4 to 5 books a month.
yeah,
And they're not novels. They're about, how can I improve myself? And people say, I haven't got time to read even one book. Well, it's priorities, right?
oh, I totally, dude, totally agree. Totally agree.
And I will just plant this seed without. There's a very simple way to read 4 to 5 books a month. You get your 4 to 5 books, you stack them wherever you can do. You allocate an hour a day, whether at the end of the day, morning, or whatever it is, but one straight hour. And you pick up the book and you read. You got 4 books, so you read 15 minutes. And as you're reading, you will just highlight and make note in the book, and you put it down for 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And you pick up the next book. And by the end of the month, you've read 4 of these books. And what's the most important thing? People read, but they're not comprehending and internalizing it. But when we use our pen, mark, and the next time I pick up this book, all those things jump off the page.
Yeah.
And reinforce what I had learned yesterday.
Yeah.
And how do you learn so much, Tom? Where do you get all the well, number one, I just made a decision. But that was taught to me by Bob Proctor.
Yep.
And you know what? When I started applying it, I could read 5, 6 books a month.
Oh, hey,
That's
you
it.
know what?
And
Tom, I totally agree. And it's about holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sayings is this: the mirror never lies. Only the person looking into it lies. Think about that one for a second, right?
Yeah.
But here's what's interesting about what you just said and reading books is, are you reading a book to read the book? Are you reading the book and digesting the book and implementing a few things out of the book? And I really want to camp on this for a second.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of people who read books to brag about how many books they read, right? Hang out on social for any length of time, and you'll see people posting they've read 300 books this year. God bless them, right? But how many of those books did you actually read, comprehend, digest, and put into action? So here's what I'd like for us, and it really goes on, and it plays on what you just said, is I read 30 pages a day. That's it. Now, when I have more time, and when I say more time, like on the weekends with a cup of coffee and so forth, I could power through a half a book pretty easily. but I'm talking Monday through a Friday, 30 pages. 30 pages, literally, if you put a timestamp on it, is 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on your reading comprehension and how fast you read something. I happen to read with a highlighter. I still love the feel of a book. I know you do as well. I can't read electronically. I can't read off of a Kindle or anything like that. It's just, I just can't do it. However, let's just think about this for a second. Let's just say the average book is 200 pages. Let's just say an average book length, 200 pages. And you read 20 pages a day. 20 pages a day, 5 days a week. That's 100 pages. 4 weeks in a month, you've read 2 books a month. You've read 24 books in a year by simple just 20 pages a day. I know y'all can carve out 15 minutes. Most people screw around for more time than that they can't account for. But just think about those 15 minutes that you devote, that you hold yourself accountable to, and you read something that's mindset related, leadership related, spiritually related, something that's going to help you grow. This becomes conversational fuel to connect and relate and build relationships with people.
You are hitting home runs. That's the best way I could describe it. Is that, hopefully we'll get into your book here in a moment too. So, but because I think it's relevant. If you're going to get a book, why do you want to get the book? Just because you got I got 300 books in my office here. So what? Well, look at my library. Well, no, go look at my books, and you know which books I've read. Because they're highlighted, they're marked up.
Yes.
And there might be some point where there's nothing marked up because it didn't draw me in for one reason. It didn't draw me in. Didn't mean I didn't read it, but man, there's five pages, man. I'm just all in it.
Yep.
And guess what? The next time I pick up the book, I don't have to read it again. Boom, it jumps off the page. And this is your genius factor right here. There's a neurological thing that people don't realize. When you write and highlight it, it rewires your brain totally different than just reading or just listening or whatever. This is power. This is your genius. This is how you increase your ability to take on newness of whatever.
Yeah.
This is the psychological people that know this, and educators are really concerned that the person that writes achieves more. Always. They can have the lower aptitude. They will outperform somebody that doesn't write, that is their aptitude's off the charts.
I totally agree. There's something to be said for writing. Just unfortunately, we just don't teach writing much anymore. But here's what's interesting is if I span my camera, I have a stack of books. It's probably 20 plus deep right now, to the left of where I'm at. And these are the books I've read that have meaning, that have slapped me across the face, that I pull that book out and I can skim through it. I highlight it, you underline it, make notes with a pen, so forth. But again, I could pick that book up and instantaneously, just by thumbing through that book and seeing the highlights, it starts to trigger memories of how I felt when I was reading that book.
Exactly. And that's what Bob Proctor says. Most people don't know how to study.
Yeah.
Study words. Words have power.
Yep. Totally agree.
Study words. Gratitude opens up the heart. I believe gratitude is a pathway to love, and our heart is part of that symbolism or metaphor at a spiritual level. Selling from the heart. So I like to, a little bit of background on the book. Your background is been in sales. You've been in the one industry. And I tell you what, the industry you're in is a different industry to be in. I know a lot of people have been in that industry. I wouldn't want to be in it. So I have to give you some kudos for being in that industry. I want you to share a little bit about your little journey to here in the book and your why around it. Because I think, what are you grateful for that, why, what's your why?
Yeah, I'll just address my why just real quick, and then I'm gonna get into the backstory because I keep my why, my how, and my what right in front of me. I see it every single day. My why is I believe success happens when I contribute to a greater cause. That's simply my why. That's what lights my fire. And if I take people on a quick journey, you remember what I said as one of my very first mentors said, you really don't know somebody until you know their backstory.
Yeah.
Who would have thought if I take people back to the late 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and if you would have asked me, hey, Larry, can you forward think to the end of the year 2022? Would you be the author of Selling from the Heart? And would you have a podcast called Selling from the Heart? Would you have built a business around this that's turned into a movement in the sales profession? I would have said, hell no, you're a box of rocks. But things happen, right? There's things that happen that we just can't control. And I stayed in, as Tom mentioned, I stayed in one channel my whole entire career. It was my choice, but I believe we're products of how we were raised. I was raised by a highly authentic, when it comes to building relationships, mother. And I grew up with a highly brainiac father who was a rocket scientist. He studied liquid jet propulsion. He was an aeronautical engineer. And I combined both of those together in how I brought myself and raised myself in the sales world. And here's what I want us to key in on, how I raised myself in the sales world. My parents didn't job hop. That's how I was raised. So I chose to get into sales. I wasn't forced to get into sales. My parents hate everything about sales and salespeople. So I chose to make it a career. And I chose to make it a career because I held myself to a higher degree of accountability than any sales manager. And I was on dysfunctional sales teams. I had dysfunctional managers, but I brought to the surface how I was raised. And that's what made me me. I believe we all have a secret sauce. My secret sauce for almost 30 years selling copiers in Los Angeles is I was able to connect and relate to people really well. I could make somebody feel so comfortable about me that they would soon start sharing what I call business secrets. And those business secrets, they weren't sharing with other people. And that's what propelled me in the copier industry. Highly laggard in nature, very dysfunctional, highly chaotic, extremely high turnover. I use the phrase love them and leave them. And that's what I experienced. Hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. And I share this because what led me on this journey was I wanted to be different. I wanted to be different than any other salesperson in my marketplace doing the exact same thing I was doing. And what I honed in on were two things. It was how I connect to somebody in the very beginning of that conversation. This is well before any relationship has ever been established. And then what happens at the end, and how do I keep that going? And where all the sales skills training and all that was happening was in the middle. And I'm not here to discredit it, but I don't believe we have a closing problem in sales. We have an opening problem in sales. No. How are you connecting and relating to somebody? If you can buy into people buy from people and people buy from people they know, like, and trust, then what are you doing about it? I capitalized on those two things. I really honed in on first impressions and how perception is reality and how my clients and my future clients perceive salespeople. And the faster I could build trust, the faster I could build credibility, the faster they would start opening up to me. The inspirational experiences that I would bring to my clients, I knew that the better the experience, the better the outcome. The better the experience, the more likelihood they would share things with other people. And that's how I was able to get unsolicited referrals. And that's what propelled me through the copier channel until the age of 50. And at the age of 50, I was fired. I lost my job. I'm coming off one of the best years I ever had in the copier channel. I rose from being last in sales because I chose to start a brand new company and start my life over again after 20 years with the same company. I worked my way up in a year and a half to becoming the number 2 salesperson. And I got fired. And it was a humbling experience. First time ever I experienced ever getting fired. I was never fired from a job in high school. Excuse me. I was never fired from a job in college. I was never fired from a job until the age of 50. And it was a humbling experience. And I took a spiral and I just went all the way to rock bottom. I lost my manhood. I had to tell my wife I got fired. Luckily, my kids were at that age where the vast majority of them were already out of the house. And I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And a lot of us who are listening to this or watching this have experienced this. And I'm giving you the backstory to this because I've walked through a lot of this. I've walked through the roller coaster of life. I just happen to deal with it in my 50s. And a lot of people deal with it in their 50s. And I remember making one phone call, and that phone call was to who's my podcast partner, what I call my partner in crime, Daryl Amy. And after a very lengthy conversation with Daryl, he goes, Larry, you don't need to go back into the sales world. You need to coach and train salespeople on what made you, you. But check this out, in order to coach and train salespeople on what made me, me, I had to really unpack what made me, me. Stop and think about that for a second. And I struggled with it for a while because when I would start coaching, training salespeople, I was on an ego trip.
Mm-hmm.
I was on an ego trip in my early 50s doing this. I put myself on the pedestal and so forth. And it's why I stunk when I was trying to become a sales manager somewhere in my sales career. But once I kind of stepped back and I go, it's not about me, it's about them, the light started going off. And where the lights really went off is when I decided to start the podcast. And this was only 5.5 years ago. And I wanted to start the podcast and I wanted Daryl to be my co-host. And I wasn't quite sure. I'd never podcasted before, had no idea what podcasting even meant. But I said, hey, Daryl, you want to start a podcast? And he goes, no, not really. And I go, hey, I think it'd be a great way to get a message out there. Because I was so hyper-focused in a niche channel. I came out of the copier channel. I went right back into coaching in the copier channel. Small, myopic, niche sales channel. And I said, hey, podcasting would be a great way to get this message out there. What do you want to call this podcast? Daryl says. And I said, hey, we'll call it Selling from the Heart. And he goes, pure genius. I'm all in. And it was right then and there. I said, hey, if we're going to have a really successful podcast, we're going to call this Selling from the Heart. I got to start doing the heart work. And heart work is hard work. Let me tell you, people. I mean, I've gone through a roller coaster of a journey in my 50s to really unpack this. I don't have a PhD in human behavior. I'm not even anywhere remotely close to a Simon Sinek level or Dr. Brene Brown level, none whatsoever. Those are my idols. But what we bring to the forefront is just real street savvy stuff when it comes to how to connect with authenticity and how to bring your heart to the forefront. As I was writing the book, and I started writing Selling from the Heart at 52. Book came out when I was 53-ish, somewhere right in that neighborhood. Is I wanted to write a book that packed a punch, that took people on a journey, because it's the journey that I took in writing this and really unpacking who I was. And that's why I shared in the very beginning, I believe success happens when I contribute to a greater cause. And how I do this is by making things clear and understandable. Because ultimately what I'm all about is building trusting relationships. That's what the sales profession's sorely lacking. But see, if you can't connect to who you are internally, you're going to struggle to connect to your clients.
Exactly.
And I could connect and relate to my clients really well. I think that was my secret sauce. But I'm here to tell everyone who's watching or listening, y'all have a secret sauce. It just requires some work. It's tough stuff. And it's the stuff that a lot of people don't want to open the cupboards to uncover. But if you can open the cupboards and you're willing to go there, I promise you this, it will forever change the course of your career, and it will forever change the trajectory of your life. I've built rock solid relationships and a whole business around this in 5.5 years because the message is resonating. And people are craving for this stuff.
Yes.
They really are, especially what's happened over the course of the last few years. But in order to really bring your heart to the forefront, whether this be as a solo entrepreneur, whether this be as a sales leader, as a sales professional, you're in the people business, people. And you're in a business where trust is at an all-time low. And if you struggle to connect to yourself, you're going to struggle to connect to your clients. If you struggle to connect to yourself, you're going to struggle to connect to your future clients. If you struggle to connect to yourself, you're going to have some okay friendships, but if you can really connect to yourself, watch what happens, how fast you connect and build rock solid friendships. And think about where trust sits right now. Here's what I want us to think about is how well do we trust ourselves?
Larry, you just said something right there that is so important. That with self-work, it takes work, and facing who we are, how we learned, how we thought, our self-image, our belief systems, our shame, our guilt, all the things that are self-image. And I think the number one thing that holds people back to be that authentic heart space thing is they're not living in integrity with themselves.
Yep.
And that's hard work. That takes work. You're honest with yourself. Why did I not fulfill something that you should have done for yourself? It's about yourself. And integrity is if we're not integrity with ourselves and true to ourselves, how can we have integrity in our communication with another human being? Whether it be your spouse, your children, a business relation, it comes through. And that we talked about that earlier. So that self-work is so important in life. If you want to have a more successful, fulfilling life, we are relationship creatures. We were designed this way to interface and be human beings with human beings, right? I mean, we can dive into that. So I just think, like you hitting some really home runs here, is that let's get back to who the essence of who we are. Be authentic, and don't worry. We get all the little things that go on in our brain are just made up, usually in our own mind, our guilt and our shame and all those things. And I don't want to let somebody know that we talked about that with Mark. There's you go to a point of being authentic and full disclosure of, there's a place for things, but I'm sort of getting the weeds here a little bit, but I want to go back to that. It's just this integrity is such an important thing, but you can't have integrity in any other relation until you have integrity with yourself. I think that's really what I want to say.
No, you're right. And, I hold myself to this as the stories that we tell ourselves are the stories that usually play out in our lives.
Yeah.
The stories in our head become the stories of our life.
Yeah.
And I will be the first one to throw my hand up and say, I have done mental gymnastics on this. And I got to catch myself going down those rabbit holes. And it's really easy to go down those rabbit holes, regardless, whether you're in sales, which I believe everybody's in sales, or whether you're a solo entrepreneur or whatever. The hardest thing to do is clear the weeds out of your head.
Yes.
Is clear the weeds out of your head. And quite frankly, that's why I read mindset books. That's why I read leadership books. That's why I read spiritual books. I try to keep my mind clear of all the clutter on a daily basis because it creeps in there that fast. And once those weeds start growing and we don't put any weed killer on it, they just keep growing and growing and growing.
You said something earlier and just brought this thought back up, is a lot of people can't really articulate their purpose in life, who they really are. They can't articulate it. They may sense it from time, but they really can't. And that's why vision is so important. And when you have a clear vision, purpose, and why, just like you shared to doing things for a higher good. And when you have that in place, your mind will only allow those things that will support that. And it's on the negative side too. So whatever your mind, it'll bring in those things to support that. But when you have a clear mental picture of a positive outcome and how you see Tom Ginn or Larry or whoever you are operating in that vision, then you only support those things that support the vision. Now, it could be a negative vision or positive, right? You're going to manifest what you think about. So we have a choice. So, but I want to get back here about your book. Because we were talking, you made that, you got fired at age 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could say I only got fired once. Actually, I'm grateful I did, because every time I got fired, it caused that reflection.
Yeah.
What could have I done differently?
Sure.
Not put myself in that situation. And it opened up doors. It caused me to grow. Tom, you really weren't doing the things you needed to do to accomplish. You created it. I didn't want to take responsibility for a long time. It wasn't until I got coaching. You know what? I own it now. Yeah. But I learned from it. And I didn't start really doing personal development at a deep level. Being in sales, you do motivational stuff and goal setting and all this, I call the surface stuff. Right. It wasn't until into my 60s, and I'm 72 today, that I've got a true awakening who Tom Ginn is. And my life has changed. I've had success. I've had failures. But I'm having so much more fun and so much more success. Things are coming to me so easily. Yeah. And like you said, I wish I would have done some personal development earlier. Well, it took me 50 some years, 60 years in professionally to really do the work.
Yeah. I just, again, you're so spot on. And I just want to let, if there's people that are watching this or go back and listen to it that are in their 20s and 30s, start unpacking this now. And if you don't, it's going to hit you between the eyes. And it usually does in your 40s and 50s. I just wish a lot of this would have been bestowed upon me when I was in my 20s and 30s. Because who knows what would have happened. But I just look back on this journey now and I go, holy smokes, I was willing to open up the cupboard and unpack all of this stuff.
And so there's some rotten rice there. We got to get rid of that, right? So
no, absolutely. That's why, you put on here validating your new identity is if I look back on my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I thought I really knew who I was. And I did to a certain degree, but it took a life-altering moment to really unpack who I really was. And once I unpacked who I really was, my friends started to notice. My circle of influence started to notice. And I've literally, my closest friends, and I guard my inner circle really, really well. I guard it with everything I have. They go, you know something, Larry, you're doing exactly what you should be doing. I see the way you carry yourself now. And I'm proud. And these are like my really close friends. But I had to validate it. I had to validate it with myself. I had to become willing to change who I was. And then I had to go out and start proving it to other people. Hey, this is who I am. This is who I was always. And it's been interesting because people who know me go, holy smokes, what's gotten into you? I go, I just unpacked who I really was.
Yeah. I can relate, Larry, in many different things. We've got a lot of people out there that life throws us curveballs. We have
Yep.
disappointments, challenges, economies change who we work for, all these things. And then we're like you lost your job at age 50. Now all these internal things start really showing. Am I worthy? Am I whatever it is starts manifesting? What would you say to somebody that, we're going to have these challenges, we're going to lose our jobs or whatever, and then we have to identify who we are, but many times we have to change who we are to adapt, right? What would you say to somebody that, how does that process start? Validating your new identity, because a lot of people hide behind their old self-image, a false image. There's always a true self-image behind that, and that's what usually people see or feel. But we have, I call a mask. We wear a professional mask, we wear a family mask, we wear a spiritual mask, right? But in essence, we still have an identity, but now it's been shaken. What do you tell somebody how to bring out and validate and create that new identity? I hope I asked that question.
Yeah, no. So a couple things. Again, it's not overly complicated stuff, but yet it is kind of complicated because it's going to require some work. Is again, pen to paper. And there's a self-reflection journal that goes along with Selling from the Heart. And in the first couple chapters, I ask you to do some deep work on this stuff. And where I'd ask people to start is, how would I describe myself? What makes me tick? What words would I use? If I had to choose the 5 words that would describe me, what would they be? How do I want to make somebody feel when they interact with me? And then I'm a big believer in this when it comes to validating. It's go out and ask people, your friends, your family, your coworkers, clients, ex-clients. Have them describe who you are. Hey, based on what you know of me, how would you describe me? What words would you use? And again, this isn't difficult stuff. It's going to require some work. But I promise you this, feedback that you get is going to either validate your thoughts, or it's going to help you understand that, hey, you know what? The people that are close to me, they think of me in a whole different light than I actually think of myself. And then the other thing I would do is go find a coach and a mentor, and have them help you bring it out yourself.
Yeah, because we're in times of turmoil. Life is a journey, and I think what Sandy Gallagher is Bob Proctor's business partner. I don't know if you know the story about her, but she was one of the most successful attorneys in America putting IPOs together, and she went to Bob Proctor's thing, and she recognized she was living a life that didn't fill her core values and what she did that work, and she says, I want to go out and share this information that Bob was teaching. But a lot of people, and I always like, because we're talking about gratitude, is many times we get hung up on, I call it the trappings of life, the silvery objects, the ornaments on the tree, all the surface stuff. And a lot of times when we talk about success, we're attaching it to the number of cars we have, the newest car, the boat, the house, the fanciest watch, or whatever it is, and we validate success on that. And those things are fine. I like fine things too. But what would you say to this comment? Success is who you become along the way. That you're growing, you're expanding. It's not the destination. We get hung up on a destination. Yeah, we want that big visionary goal, something bigger than we've ever done before. And we measure our success to validate our self-image. But who are you really becoming along the way? You can't get there until you improve yourself. You cannot get to a new level until you improve yourself.
Right. But here's the thing is, everyone's going to define success however they see fit. Right. And there's people that just define success by money, or they define success by the material things. But are they really successful? It's like for instance, I mean, and I talk to this with my wife all the time. We talk about this. And we think we're pretty successful. We live a very simple life.
Yeah.
We're not materialistic. But success for me at this stage of my life, and I'm 58 years old, is the impact that I can have on the people that I come across. I don't have to worry about having millions of dollars in the bank. There's a lot of millionaires that are very successful, that are insecure, that are really not happy. And again, I talk about this to my wife. I look at some of our closest friends and the people that are in my inner circle and the things that they do and the cars that they drive and the vacations that they take and all that. So be it. Y'all can spend your money however you see fit. I drive around in a 2008 Honda Civic Coupe that's paid for, that's got 152,000 miles on it. So be it. I don't define success by the cars I drive or the house that I live in or the trips that I take. At this stage in life, I define success by the impact that I'm having, which goes back to my why. And my why is I believe success happens when I contribute to a greater cause. And my greater cause is to elevate the sales profession and bring authenticity and heart back into a very noble profession.
You know, you said something there, and I think if we could start evaluating the impact we have in life, I'm not out here to say, hey, thanks, Tom, pat on the back, you really helped me here. My whole core values, and this is through my growth and then getting coaching, why I picked certain careers and why I didn't have success in certain areas, is because they didn't align with my core values. And so everything I've done, now I'm very clear to my core values and how can I serve to help people and use my story, use my journey, because I can get you to, I can get you to where I'm at. Yeah. But I can't take you to someplace I've never been. Yeah. That's where you say, I'll pass you off to Larry. Okay. Sure. So he can take you to the next place. As I grow, maybe we can continue that journey together. So I sort of lost my brain there for a second. It comes with 72. No, but it's really about this. This has just happened to me here in the last probably 18 months ago. It was, and I've had lots of friends, and in my financial services company, I had an agency of 500 agents, and helped some, team wise. Some of us became very successful in that enterprise. And I sold it off and all that, and I got some satisfaction, but I really wanted something else. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I wanted something else. And it wasn't until about 18 months ago, somebody found me on Facebook that it was a client way back. This is probably the greatest satisfaction that I've ever had in my career. Is this. He sought me out to tell me thank you. Yeah. You made a difference in my life because I was ready to commit suicide. Yeah. Because I was upside down financially, and you gave me hope. You gave me some resources and tools that changed my life. I'm alive today because of you.
That's so good.
It brings tears to my eyes. Yeah. I think that's our purpose in life. One person in life, if we can make that influence in somebody, seriously, I'm about ready to cry, because I think that's the reason we walk this earth, is how can we contribute to help somebody survive more efficiently in life. And so he sought me out. He says, it took me 3 or 4 years to find you. And he says, I found you. And I go, wow, now I understand the impact of having a purpose in life. Yep. And share your gift with other people. You never know whose life you can change. Because he was ready to commit suicide. Yeah. So
that's powerful stuff.
Yeah. And I think when we find that, and we know we're not looking for the accolades, but we know that we're impacting people. Yeah. Many times not going to seek you out, but we know we're making a difference.
Yeah.
So,
No, and it just goes back to just how you carry yourself. And and this is sales centric because I'm just a sales geek at heart.
yeah,
But sales is brutally tough, right? Sales is a brutally tough industry to survive in.
yeah.
And we can blend in or we can stand out. We can swim in a red ocean or we can swim in a blue ocean. But swimming in a blue ocean requires work. Blending in doesn't really require that much work.
Larry, you just said something that just triggered here. It takes work. You need the blue ocean. I got the book and
Sure.
all that. And it just sort of thing just came to me. I look at the colors around me. They're blue.
Yeah.
My favorite color.
Yeah.
It just came to me.
Yeah, and that's why I challenge everybody. Standing out requires work. Blending in doesn't require work because it's just you're acting just like everybody else.
Yeah, conformity. Well, my friend, I said anything else. I like to put your book up. I want to make sure people know about your book. I think the essence of your book is not just selling from the heart. I think it's the principles of life. Everybody's selling.
Sure.
So the going through this book, and thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Your story there, and then validating our identity, because things are going to come in life that we have to challenge ourselves.
Sure.
To believe in ourselves again. A lot of times you watch it. Can you believe in yourself again?
Sure.
You've been crushed. So I'm going to bring this up about your book. Where is it? Right there. So here's a little bit about your book. I'm going to bolt down this banner. So
No, I appreciate it. And if anyone, I'd love to send you a signed copy of my book. Just go to sellingfromtheheart.net/book. All I ask you to do is just pay shipping and handling. It's a nominal fee. I'll personally sign the book. There'll be a couple other little trinkets in there, and it's my gift to you guys.
Well, thank you, Larry. Thank you. That's quite a generous offer. Let me get rid of that off there. Yeah, so I appreciate your book, and I got all your signature stuff here. So I value books that are signed by the.
It's all good, Tom Ginn.
Yeah. So, Larry, anything else in closing with gratitude, selling from the heart, that you would like to close with in today's?
I'll just bring this to a close. Basically, the way we open this is if you lead your life and open your conversations with gratitude, that becomes the relational bridge builder. There are gaps that are sitting right now inside relationships. Just show appreciation, lead your life with gratitude, and say thank you, and watch what starts to happen.
Yeah. I know for a fact, when I got a better understanding of gratitude, my life changed.
Yep.
I can't explain all the details. It has changed in a way that it blows my mind sometimes. Yeah. And I trace it back to that discovery of gratitude from the heart, understanding our humanness, and it's okay to have frailties. It's okay to be who you are,
So, well, in other words, to be who you are, you got to unpack who you are, and I'll leave that one alone for now.
Yeah, you
got to think about that.
Yeah. So, besides your book, we got an email here. If someone wants to reach out to you, let me bring that up. There it is. So
there you go. You could just reach out to me. You see it on the screen. It's my first initial L, then Levine at sellingfromtheheart.net. Wonderful. If you have a question, a thought, I'd be more than happy to hear it, talk to you about it, or even write about it.
Larry, I know you do speaking and you got training and that type of stuff. So they can reach out to you if you want to bring your gifts to an individual, an organization. They can contact you there.
Yeah, and I would just say this: if you want to find out our journey and what we're up to at Selling from the Heart, you can just go to sellingfromtheheart.net. However, if you want any free information text to you, we live in this world of text. Everyone's got a mobile phone. Just open up your texting app on your phone. You all know where it is. and you can just type the word heart, HEART to 2100. That's 21000. And you'll get text right to your phone, all kinds of free resources.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. Well, my friend, I just want to, wish you and your family a blessed and Merry Christmas.
Oh, same to you. Thanks,
A
Tom.
healthy and prosperous New Year. And same to our audience. I want to thank those that have. I was just watching the eyeball ticker up here, people coming, jumping in and out. It's been changing, popping up and down. So I appreciate Mark for jumping on. I appreciate Robert and a couple other people that jumped in real quick. So I'm grateful. Tag and share. We never know how this story or this message will impact an individual out there. So share it today. So with that, my friend, we've got a couple more messages coming here. See what we got here. Thank you, Robert.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome.
All right.
Good stuff, Tom Ginn. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you.
Well, my pleasure, Larry. You ever going to get out in the Chicagoland, Milwaukee area? When you get out this area,
there's a possibility I might next year. So,
well, I tell you what, I'd love to have you back in on either Elevate Your Profit or G-Force anytime. You bring such great value of your message, and definitely want to keep that door open for that. And hey, if you get in this area, we'll make sure we'll turn you on to Lake Country, Wisconsin here.
No, it'll all be good. I look forward to it.
All right, buddy.
All right, take care.
I'm going to put you in the back office and hold.
All right,
for a
perfect.
Moment. Well, my friends out there, incredible person. The book is something that everybody should get, besides just taking these principles and apply it into your business acumen or sales acumen. Life is selling. We are selling all the time. The better we become, better impact we have. So I just appreciate Larry coming on to our program, G-Force. G is for gratitude. I believe it's the gateway to the highest place that we seek is love. With that all said, everybody have a great holiday. Merry Christmas.